Good morning. All right, so I've been seeing these Scrum on a page documents being shared around LinkedIn for years now. And the problem is they often have out of date, incorrect, or just misleading information on them that isn't actually representative of what Scrum is or isn't. So I still think that the answer to that is to go and read the Scrum Guide, go to the source. It's only a 13-page document. You should spend the time looking at that. However, if you're going to share a document that has a summary or a simplified version of Scrum, it should at least be based on accurate and up-to-date information, which is what I've tried to create here with my own Scrum on a page document. And I thought I would just spend some time going through it so you can understand what's in it and why. So, as you can hopefully see at the very, very top, we've got the three pillars: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. These are arguably the most important foundation of Scrum on which all the other elements rest. And these are often completely missed out on other single page documents or other descriptions of Scrum. So, these are right at the top to remind you that this is how Scrum works, that we actually look at what's happening, that we inspect and adapt based on what we learn, and that all of our artifacts and other elements of Scrum support those pillars in some way. And as you scroll down, you can see then that we tie the next element into it, which is our artifacts, our product backlog, our sprint backlog, and our product increment, which is our representation of the work that we intend to do for our whole product for the upcoming sprint. And then obviously the product increment that we produce in a sprint at least once, that then supports empiricism by giving us something that can be inspected and adapted. And you'll notice that I've put a little note on the end there to say this is a constant process, not a linear flow, because a common misunderstanding is that Scrum tells you that you should only produce a single product increment and that you do you pull one thing from your product backlog into your sprint backlog and do that in a single stretch. Whereas, of course, Scrum is adaptive, it's complex, and you may pull in multiple items multiple times. You might plan all of your work ahead of the sprint. You might go back to your product backlog partway through the sprint, and that's totally fine, as is producing multiple product increments. However, you would obviously aim to produce at least a single product increment in each sprint. Now, this connects, of course, to our commitments. These were added in the 2020 Scrum Guide, so these are relatively new. And you can see our product goal and our sprint goal, which are our two commitments to the outcomes that we will achieve through our product backlog and sprint backlog. And then ultimately, that leads to a definition of done that maintains a certain standard of quality for the increment that we produce to make sure that we have full transparency of the work that we're intending to do and the work that we have done, so that we're never misleading people about the state of completion or level of quality of that work. So as you go a bit further down, you can see that we've got the artifacts being maintained by a Scrum team, which has three accountabilities: product owner, developers, and Scrum Master. You'll note the sentence there that mentions that the team is self-managing and cross-functional, which is an important characteristic of Scrum teams. But then the accountabilities of those three people or groups of people are called out. So the product owner, of course, is accountable for the order of the product backlog. The developers are accountable for what is in the sprint backlog, and the Scrum Master is accountable for the effectiveness of the team and serves the product owner, the team, and the organization. So this ties then down to, of course, our sprints, which is the time box in which we do our work. These are repeatable, and they act as container for the other events that serve as minimum opportunities to inspect and adapt. So you'll note that it says here that these are minimum opportunities to inspect and adapt, and that's because we don't intend to only do that once at the beginning or end of a sprint. A sprint obviously allows us to inspect and adapt many times throughout, as we should, but certainly the sprint itself and the activities within the sprint each act as minimum opportunities to engage in that inspection and adaptation. And as you can see, those events are called out: sprint planning, which focuses in on the sprint goal and the work that we'll do; the daily scrum, which focuses in on the developers creating our plan for the next 24 hours to achieve the sprint goal; the sprint review, which is where we inspect the product increment that we created and adapt the backlog; and finally, the retrospective, where we inspect our work in the last sprint and then adapt our process and the way that we work together. And finally, down at the very bottom, you can see here the 5 Scrum values. And these are important. They are the underlying principles, values that we as a team have to agree to in order to be successful. And of course, they're the things that we have to actively cultivate in order for all these other things to work. So focus, commitment, respect, openness, and courage. All of these must be present in a team in order to support and facilitate trust, which of course is how we can get our self-managing cross-functional team, and ultimately how we can support empiricism through all of those other events, artifacts, and accountabilities. So that's it. That's Scrum on a page. It obviously is simplified. There are going to be parts removed from here that perhaps you think are important. So I would encourage you to go and read the Scrum guide if you really want to understand the details. And of course, put it into practice and reach out to people like me if you've got questions about how it works or how it should work in the real world. Good luck.